Disclosure: I was invited by the Panzermuseum Munster. In this video I ask on behalf of a German combat engineer that serves in Ukraine how German tankers were trained to deal with mines. For this I interview a former Leopard 2A6 gunner. Afterwards I showed the raw interview to the German combat engineer for additional commentary, which was added to this video.
Hello everyone, we are here at the Panzermuseum Munster and this is Tobias, a former Leopard 2A6 gunner. And we have a question from the front line, basically, from Ukraine, from a combat engineer, a German combat engineer currently serving in the Ukrainian Legion. And he has a foreign question to you. What is your opinion of a tanker, how to deal with mines? Particularly how to detect them, and then what is your response? What do you do? What is your tactical response? What is the planning? And especially he asked the question, what do you do with deployable mines, PTM-free? Like PTM-3s can be deployed by helicopters, also by artillery and rocket artillery. So they are different to, let's say, conventional mines, or most people think that somebody digs them in, but they're just fired there or air deployed. So you could say they can create an instantaneous minefield. So what is your, how do you detect mines? Or what did you learn about detecting mines?
First of all, mines are a type of barricade, and it's not the only type of barricade. It's you have also check hedgehogs, for example, but you also have barbed wire. That's all measures that are put into the area to stop a tank, or
so
at least
area
to
denial weapon.
Or to slow down advantage. And the thing is, with the mine, modern mines are really hard to find, and you can hide them that much that you basically can't see them. So the first vehicle in the column is always prone to hit one. That's the thing is. But you have always to think about that the mine or barricades itself are overwatched by the enemy. So he placed the mines there, but is overwatching the area. So when you get slowed down, that he can engage you in the ideal situation for him on your flanks, for example. So the best thing that you can do actually is when you drive into these mines, that you try to get off it, that you drive backwards in your own tracks. If you can't get your vehicle off because you drove on a mine, the best thing would be under cover of the other tanks to dismount and either to try to pull away the vehicle with the tow hooks or to leave the tank on the tank tracks, because you have to think that a lot of anti-tank mines get deployed with anti-personnel mines. So you have to think about that anti-personnel mines could be all around the tank. So you will leave the area on the tank tracks where your tank was driving. So you have this small path that is secured. And on the other side is number one, that you can deploy the smoke. So the enemy is actually don't seeing you, and that you get away as fast as possible to the back while shooting your gun. And even if you don't know where the enemy is, shoot everywhere. Even if you hit 50 meters next to him, he will get scared, fire your machine gun, suppress the enemy. That's the big point. With these mine plows, like here, you always have the problem that it's very slow. I mean, the tank is there to use its mobility, its speed, and slowing down will affect the same as enemy wants. You are slow, you are in a narrow path, he can still engage you. And the thing is, when you retreat then in this ideal situation, that you overwatch the area, try to gain fire superiority over the enemy, that you cover the area for infantry to secure as well. And then comes special engineer troops to demine these areas, or with special demining vehicles that are purposely built for demining areas.
So like the Kyla over there?
Like the Kyla, yeah. Or you also see modified armored recovery vehicles currently in Ukraine operating to doing this job. But this only works if they are covered. Yeah. If you send them without cover, they will also get targeted.
And these special demining tanks or mine clearing tanks, they have usually a system called a trail marker system. So they also mark where the area is cleared. But I talked with the combat engineer already about this, and there's one problem, for instance, that some of these demining tanks, they sometimes just destroy the mines, but not completely. For instance, they shatter the mine, but for instance, the detonator of an anti-tank mine still is enough to wound an infantry soldier if they go off. And also, for instance, he particularly noted for the Kyla that the guy who's driving it doesn't actually see out. Now the Kyla is a bit of an adapted and not ideal version, it's a bit an outdated system, but he has to be radio basically commandeered by radio. And afterwards, an engineer has to come and clear off any potential mines that are on the vehicle itself. So the driver is actually not allowed to get out.
Here the German combat engineer noted that this problem is solely an issue of Flail tanks. Other mine clearing tanks don't have the issue, that the driver has to wait.
So I think with modern systems like the Leopard 2.3, Leopard 2R from the Finnish ones,
yes.
I'm not sure if it's also the case, but I suspect it could be the same. So like these mine clearing tanks, because I had the picture like, oh, the mine clearing tank, and it drives through the minefield and everything is fine. No, not at all. You still you need to send your combat engineers to make sure that everything else can pass through. Tanks can follow, and with these basically small demining systems, you have the other tanks that follow have to follow exactly the same tracks. So you can only travel in a column. And if that lead vehicle gets destroyed, for instance, then everything is blocked. So they have all to go slowly. I mean, with a T-72, then all going slowly backwards in the same track is like...
But the problem is with what you said about these mines, there's also another kind of mines like this off-road, off-site mines that are placed not in front of the tank, but on the side and are attacking the tank with a shaped charge projectile. And those systems won't protect you because they are not in front of the tank, and they have systems like they are counting the wheels. So they don't even have necessarily to attack the first vehicle, but can attack the second one or third one, and then you can't go back.
Yeah. So these are basically like a not makeshift version. In the Second World War, the Germans used Panzerfaust basically, and they put them on the side of the road, and then with a tripwire engage them. And these are basically not a makeshift version of this, but an actual mine. It was, how is it called? Palm?
Yeah, there's, for example, the German one that was delivered to Ukraine. Americans also developed such things. So there are different mines that got developed working with the same principle, but it's still possible to make something like this makeshift with an RPG.
Yeah.
You can still do the tripwire with an RPG, and that's a big difference and danger, because it doesn't hit like the tracks or the front wheel. It will hit the side of the vehicle where it's the thinnest armor, and especially what many people don't think about, it's low, it's very low. It's under the skirts, so it doesn't get detonated on the skirts, it goes under it. And especially for like T-72s or T-80s or T-64s, it will hit the autoloader. And it's ammunition storage.
Yeah, and then the turret goes off.
The combat engineer notes, yes, smart mines exist, but mostly in theory. In practice, they are very uncommon. Since one key aspect of mines is that they are cheap, mass-produced, and employed in large numbers. Those smart mines that exist are used, but not en masse. As such, they are very uncommon. Additionally, he disagrees that one can repurpose every RPG to be used as an off-route mine. There are a few tricks to do, but it is complicated, and he notes that this would be more of an IED, an improved explosive device, particularly since its range would be very low. He adds that there exist special kits for conversion, like the Canadian C-14 landmine that uses the AT-4.
And we're also trained in any way on air deployable or mines or something, or artillery deployable mines like PTM-3?
I mean, that's more like a strategical weapon than like on a smaller scale. And those are like informations that get passed to officers, and that's a higher payment group than I was. And they have to think about if it's necessary and good to drive into an area that has these mines deployed.
But basically, were it all like how to detect them? But I assume they are easier to detect because they are not dug in.
Probably you know where the enemy was shooting when you have good reconnaissance. I mean, you have reconnaissance helicopters, UAVs, your reconnaissance units, and if this weapon gets deployed, I mean, you can't hide it. I mean, normal anti-tank mines, you can have like small demolition troops crawling on the dirt, putting the mine, put dirt on over it again. But you can't hide like a GRAD system, or how it's called, Tornado, that is deploying the mines. You can't hide like shooting it.
Yeah.
Here the combat engineer disagrees to a certain degree. He notes that scatter mines, so mines that are deployed by artillery, rocket artillery and air, are generally easier to spot than dug-in mines. Yet these mines also have different types and levels of camouflage. This ranges from simple coloration like brown or green, but also more complicated mechanisms like for the German AT-2 anti-tank mine that has a surface coating that breaks the light. which makes it harder to detect, particularly from a moving vehicle. After all, there's a difference between spotting a mine as a trained combat engineer that walks on the ground in relatively low speed versus sitting high on a tank driving generally faster, with sometimes limited fields of view in addition with limited training in this aspect. Another aspect is that scatter mines are now also delivered via drone drop, and for this case the Russians even mass produce special camouflage nets in which these scatter mines are put in. Sometimes these are also improvised further by adding pieces of vegetation.
So it's more obviously that it was used than a small sabotage unit placing these mines somewhere, even on the rear where you don't expect them, and using all kinds of dirty tricks that you can use. For example, if you place a mine, you can put like a track path back on it. Like you dig a hole, put the mine on it, put dirt on it, and then you use like a rubber path to print in the tracks again.
Ah, so that looks like somebody drove over, right?
Yes, and then you drive over and it goes boom. That's all kind of dirty tricks you can do, and against a lot of them you can't do really. It's the same situation like if you're an infantry soldier and there's a sniper. He will hit you, and the only thing that can do is that your comrades will react to it.
Yeah.
But the first one that gets hit, gets hit. Like in an ambush as well.
Yeah, it's the same, yeah. And yeah, I mean, what the combat engineer also told me, like when they use air deployable or artillery deployable mines, that they sometimes, like, the Russians shoot at a crossroad, for instance, important infrastructure, basically points, that they clear them off and basically always prevent that reinforcements come in or something else on those lines. So on an operational scale, I would say, not strategic, operational, still tactical. Well, I mean, yeah, it's a fluent.
Yeah, it's on a higher level than on a tank platoon.
Yeah, definitely, than on a tank platoon. So a tank platoon is, for the Bundeswehr, 4 tanks, and for the Russians it's 3 tanks, basically. Don't know what it's for the Ukrainians now. And of course, this is authorized strength, and you don't always have authorized strength in combat, so it could be smaller. Anything else to add?
No.
Okay, then thank you very much. I hope we answered your question. Big thank you to the Panzermuseum Munster for inviting us. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.